So once you're finished with all this commissioning work, so you did your bow offset calibration, you performed the tilt sensor bias, you checked the rate sensors, everything is working fine. It's time to make a backup. Over here we've got two functions, the backup and restore function. And the reason for taking a backup is that all this information which you now have calibrated will be stored inside the main control unit, inside the antenna. And if you have problems with your MCU in a later stage and you need to replace that MCU, it's nice to have a backup of this information in your laptop or inside the ACU, so you can restore that into the new MCU and you will save yourself a lot of time having to calibrate everything again. Of course, it's advisable to check everything if you put a new MCU. Check your bow offset, check your tilt sensors, check the rate sensors, just to make sure it's still okay. But by restoring information from the ACU or from your laptop, you would get yourself back to a working situation. Inside this backup, there is no firmware. So the firmware is not part of the backup. So if you put a new MCU, you always need to upload firmware as explained to the latest version. Procedure for making a backup is quite simple. It will ask you, do you want to save to the ACU or do you want to save to the PC? Normally I would advise to do both, because you want to have a working system in your file with all the information of this vessel. But you would also like to have a working situation inside the ACU in case you are not the one who's going to the vessel, but one of your colleagues is. Saving to PC, it will basically ask you where do you want to save that information, and it's fully up to you to find the location and save that information. Saving to ACU, it's a shame you can't see the ACU, but if I press the ACU, my display now says that it's a backup, it's creating a backup, and now it's back on the operational screen again. So that's the way how to save a backup. Restore is exactly the opposite. So you installed a new ACU, you installed a new MCU, and by restoring from your PC or restoring from the ACU, you would get the latest or the last known working configurations back into your system. It's a one word of an advice. If you come to a vessel and you're not sure about who did the installation, or you're not sure about the information which is saved inside the ACU, just start over. Just put a new MCU, find the bow offset again, do the calibrations. It might save you a lot of time to do it that way, instead of loading some information into the MCU which you don't know if it's a working situation. So that's the way to use the backup and restore function.